One of Gonzaga's top dogs is being kicked out of the kennel.
Former Gonzaga point guard and NBA legend John Stockton is currently not allowed to attend games at his alma mater after refusing to wear a mask.
Today, many basketball fans say they are disappointed, also very surprised to see former Jazz star and NBA legend John Stockton in an anti-vaccination documentary.
This isn't a virus cheating us of these opportunities. It's the guys making decisions saying, no, we're too scared. We're going to shut everything down.
John Stockton, along with a group of doctors and lawyers, are featured in a documentary trailer created by VR COVID, a company that says their mission is to prevent vaccine injury and death and to promote and protect the right of every person to make informed, independent vaccination decisions.
NBA Hall of Famer and COVID vaccine critic John Stockton and a group of physicians are now suing Washington's Attorney General and the director of the Medical Commission for punishing doctors who spoke out about COVID-19. In 2021, the Washington Medical Commission adopted a policy to discipline doctors who spread misinformation about COVID. One of the physicians involved in the suit wrote for the Lewiston Tribune, questioned the existence of COVID-19 and the accuracy of the COVID-19 death counts. The lawsuit claims people's rights to this information are being censored. Attorneys writing, the goal is to stop the commission from investigating, prosecuting, or sanctioning physicians who speak out in public against the so-called mainstream COVID narrative.
I talked with Stockton's attorney today to ask why this case even still matters if the pandemic is officially over. He said this case is really about freedom of speech.
There are about 60 doctors, Washington licensed physicians, who are somewhere in the process of being investigated, prosecuted, or sanctioned, or have already been sanctioned for all or in part based on speaking out in public against what we'll call the mainstream COVID narrative. The question is, does the fact that someone has a state license, a state health license, give the state government some additional powers that it wouldn't have over an individual? I just can't think of a better advocate for people's rights than John Stockton. He's been the focal point and the brunt of some of these issues. He's, been castigated and vilified. All these lawsuits were really about, up until now, about doctors having the right to speak. But ultimately, that's not really the important point. The important point is the right to hear the information. Your right, my right, Stockton's right to hear the information.
What do you say to people who are questioning why now? COVID is over. Why are we even still worried about it?
I'd say, why the hell they keep on prosecuting these doctors? That's right, the pandemic is over. So drop this stuff.
You're far from the only American unhappy with COVID restrictions and how those restrictions really silenced certain voices. But a lot of people haven't filed suit over it. Why are you taking this on?
I think it just has to be done. A good friend of mine, Dr. Eggleston, who writes a editorial for Lewiston, the Lewiston Tribune in Lewiston, Idaho. He's one of the guys, retired guy, brilliant guy, talks about what's healthy for people, gives alternatives like ivermectin as thoughts. Yeah. He's just using his wisdom to share with people. It's so difficult to get information in this COVID era. So they're trying to take his license away, even though it's not a practicing issue. It's just a intrusion, another intrusion, especially in Washington State, on our right to freedom of speech.
Yeah, and a lot of people angry just like you. By the way, too, just for viewers to know, this isn't the first time you've been critical of COVID policies. I mean, during the pandemic, you had your season tickets suspended at Gonzaga, where you played college ball because you refused to wear a mask. That must have felt like betrayal in your own house.
Well, it wasn't a lot of fun. It's because I'm a public figure, I think I stuck out a little bit. There were other people doing it as well. But I couldn't sit across from all these students, these young people who were being forced to be vaccinated against their will and forced to wear masks when I know both are very unhealthy.
Mm-hmm. Rick, this has been one of those contentious, questions for several years now, right? I mean, where is the line between freedom of speech and misinformation? At what point does the government have a responsibility to call out misinformation, especially in the context of a health emergency, the likes of which we'd never seen before, like the pandemic?
Well, first of all, there's misinformation and basically malinformation. The government appears not to like what a lot of people are saying that criticize the COVID narrative, but they haven't actually had a very good track record. So I think the law is basically that everyone has the right to stand up and speak their mind in public on matters of public interest. I think that is almost a ground rock principle. And, and I think this is just a reaction. One of the reactions, the overreaction that has come up as a result of the pandemic, where people just get terrified, like keeping people off the beaches. Mm-hmm. So I think this is part of it. I think ultimately the courts are going to say that the government has no role in stopping professionals, licensees, people who have medical training from getting up and voicing their opinions on public. Look, it's one thing if they want to say, if the medical commission wants to say you can't prescribe ivermectin, that's sort of within the heartland of what medical boards can do. But we don't have a tradition in this country. Maybe in Russia or communist China they do, but in this country, we do not have a tradition or a history of sanctioning people, professionals, for speaking out in public against what the government says is true doctrine. That we don't have that here. Yeah. This is the first time they've ever tried to do this.
Yeah, you make really good points there. John, the other question I had for you, it's been 4 years since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Why are you suing now?
Well, in Washington State, they're still advertising safe and effective. I mean, the Pfizer reports, their very own reports, announced 1,200 deaths and 42,000 injuries in 3 months. And yet our health district, our state, the state of Washington, is still saying, no, they're safe and effective. Please get your booster. And to me, that's absurd. And yet, so the truth is coming from our doctors, but they're not allowed to speak it. And so if truth matters, then I think they should have every right to speak, even if they're not correct. But they have been.
If the two of you were to win this case, what does justice look like in the end?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Let me just answer that. The goal of the lawsuit is to stop the Washington Medical Commission from investigating, prosecuting, or sanctioning physicians for speaking out in public against the CDC and the mainstream COVID narrative. That's the goal of the lawsuit.
Good news is the largest COVID vaccine study to date was just released. 99 million people from around the world. It found that there is an extremely rare but increased risk for certain neurological, heart, blood, and brain disorders after taking the vaccine. And you told me that as an analogy, you were like, if we were talking about like cancers or things like that, people would not be happy about what they're seeing in this study. How so?
So this is what I mean. So when the headlines come out about vaccine, right, versus COVID, the vaccine, it's downplayed in a lot of ways, or the headlines downplay what's happening, okay? And the issue is that in our society and in healthcare in general, we always do care about the few or the rare things that happen, right? So, we colon cancer screen everyone that's 45 years and older, in the hundreds of thousands or millions of people that need to get screened, because we're worried about the 32 out of every 100,000 people that get it per year, right? Same thing with women and cervical cancer, 7.7 females out of every 100,000 per year get cervical cancer. These are rarer, fewer events that occur, but we care about them. We don't downplay them, and we screen these people and we try to prevent it from happening. There's tens of millions of people out there that are screaming from the rooftop saying that after they had the vaccine, they have suffered just, basic symptoms, or not that basic, but not as severe as this, but symptoms that have impaired their activities of daily living. They can't live the way they used to live on a daily basis. And those are things including, chest heaviness, persistent headaches every day, brain fog, post-exertional malaise, neuropathy, weakness, new onset cardiac arrhythmias, structural heart damage, autoimmune conditions, all these different things. I can name 100 other things probably. Why are we not looking at those things? The things that we are looking at in this study particularly are things that are super rare and very, very serious and life-threatening.
Where could we have improved? Well, I think I can tell you where I was when the CNN feed came that it was 95% effective, the vaccine. So many of us wanted to be hopeful. So many of us wanted to say, okay, this is our ticket out, right? Now we're done. So I think we had perhaps too little caution and too much optimism for some good things that came our way. I really do. I think all of us wanted this to be done. Nobody said waning when oh, this vaccine's going to work. Oh, well, maybe it'll work, it'll wear off. Nobody said, well, what if the next variant it's not as potent against the next variant. And then maybe the other thing I'll say is this area of gray. I have frequently said, we're going to lead with the science. Science is going to be the foundation of everything we do. That is entirely true. I think public heard that as science is foolproof. Science is black and white. Science is immediate and we get the answer and then we, make the decision based on the answer. And the truth is science is gray. And science is not always immediate. And sometimes it takes months and years to actually find out the answer. But you have to make, decisions in a pandemic before you have that answer.
Alan writes, I therefore offer you all a very warm welcome as we unite in love and friendship to...
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
From the age of Big Brother, from the age of the thought police,